looking for those professionals who know a female market, serve a female market, have stories about impacting or working with women. Heather was just telling us about her own story in her own family about her mom. So everybody here can think of either someone in their family or a friend who knows a woman who's struggled for some reason or another. So this we're wrapping up the month of widows and bringing you very important topics on how to both prepare in advance and what should happen if you become widowed. What are your next steps financially and for yourself and for your family? So we're glad you're here today joining us. Like I said, we're here in our Facebook group and also streaming to LinkedIn, which is really great. We're looking at all those professionals out there. And we're here every Thursday at noon Central to present a topic. So welcome.
Yeah, Heather, it's so great to have you. And where are you coming in from today?
So I'm in Canada, Mississauga, Ontario. And although this, I'm in Canada, this topic is, very general in nature. So I'm going to make it general so that, the situation of being widow is, universal, unfortunately. So just because I'm in Canada doesn't mean it's not relevant to anyone in the U.S. So I think it's a universal topic.
Of course,
yeah.
I'm in Canada for now.
Yeah, we have a huge Canada contingent. It's interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of people, financial professionals, actually, I think they happen to be all women, although we do onboard both men and women as purse strings approved professionals. But I think in Canada so far we have 5 or 6 women that are eager and interested to provide and present. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me give a little intro to Heather, and then we'll just jump right in. So Heather has a passion for educating a diverse set of individuals, improving financial literacy, and empowering women to achieve financial independence, as well as providing complete financial peace of mind. She's an award-winning certified financial professional and featured speaker who over the past 30 years has worked in the financial industry to provide thousands of families and professionals in Canada with education and tools of their financial literacy. I know you work with a lot of boomers, busy caregivers who are transitioning to retirement, suddenly single to divorce or death of a spouse, or really downsizing and life changes. So that's one of the reasons we definitely brought you in here today, is because you have a lot of experience working with women who have lost a loved one. So we're so excited that you're here bringing us these important topics today. And with that, I'll give you the floor. To anyone else, please throw in any questions you have throughout the presentation, and we'll make sure to get those answered.
Great. Thank you so much. So firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge that today is actually in Canada. It's the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a federal holiday. Some provinces have adopted it as well. And today really honors Canada's residential school survivors, their families, communities, and publicly commemorates the impact and trauma endured by Indigenous people in the Canadian residential schools. It also coincides with Orange Shirt Day, which is an Indigenous-led grassroots commemorative day that honors the children who survived residential schools and remembers those who did not. So public, I really think that public commemoration of this tragic and painful history in Canada and the ongoing impacts of residential schools is a vital component of the reconciliation process. Healing about this can happen in both by remembering what has been done, but also now we need to make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So today is a great day to remember what we can do to move forward on this topic. So thank you for allowing me to say that. So today I'm going to speak to you about pivoting financially after the loss of a loved one. And I also have a checklist that I'm going to review with you, but it's also available if you would like a copy. Happy to provide that through either Purse Strings or myself. And basically it is going to talk about, how to rebuild and secure your wealth after the death of a spouse. So in my experience, speaking with those who've lost a spouse, there's generally, one of three categories. So one would be the person that, has been part of the planning all along, knows where everything is, knows right away what to do and who to call. The second would be someone that has, experience with that, has kind of seen their spouse do things, has a bit of an understanding, but needs some help. And the third is really going to be the person that has no idea what to do. They're just so overwhelmed emotionally, and on top of that, just doesn't know where to start. So this is going to be a refresher for some, and a roadmap for many. And, as, we go through this, while you may think you're alone, you are not alone. There are so many wonderful heart-based women and men, financial planners and professionals out there just waiting to help you through this challenge and transition. I mean, there's so much, for you to understand and know, but just know that you're not alone. And one thing that's great, that Purse Strings has done is help you to find the right people, and brought these people into their community so that you don't have to do all the research and background on, who do I trust, who do I know, who can I go to. We are all trusted and vetted professionals and looking out for your best interest. And again, I mentioned while I'm in Canada, I mean, this is going to be general in nature, and it does apply to anyone. So the basically, I'm very grateful to be able to do what I do to, help women, give them the confidence around their finances and help them enjoy, the life they deserve. And, really knowing that you're going to be financially okay. And after the loss of a spouse, I mean, this is a really good reset point. So really think about, what is important to you. And you're going to have so many people coming to you and saying, you should think about this, you should think about that. But at the end of the day, it's really just about you. And this may be an opportunity for you to think about things that, you've always wanted to do or that you've, never done before. And, while this is focused on widows, it also does give you an opportunity for, anyone that's been divorced, or anyone that has lost a spouse to a health issue, a cognitive issue like dementia. So it's kind of the same process, whether you're widowed, divorced, or have lost a cognitive someone who has Alzheimer's and who really is no longer there to help you through this. And so the things to do, the first thing is really cash flow. So think about what expenses you have, and have a summary of, what sources of income you have, and then figure out what cash flow you have. So unfortunately, in the death of a spouse, there may be some issues where income is reduced. So in Canada specifically, you're looking at, CPP and OAS. So those, may impact what your decisions going forward would be. So to pre-plan, you can also, have a summary, have a checklist, or have a booklet of, all of your accounts, your passwords, your contact numbers, where the wills are, your insurance information. And then once you have that all in place, again, look at, what income you have and what expenses you have, and look at what expenses are those that you have to make and what are the things that you really want to do. So, can you still afford to live in the house that you're in? Maybe you're looking at 5 years of excessive bills and expenses, and then the next 10, your expenses may drop off. So it doesn't have to be the same every year. But again, it really just a good way to start it is cash flow, because your cash flow is going to determine what the next steps are, and whether or not you can, stay in the property, whether or not, you can help your kids. Maybe that's something that you wanted to do as well. And you also have to look at, emotionally, it's probably going to take you, 6 months to a year, if not longer, to really figure out what the next steps and what works for you. And you want to have your finances in place to know that you have that 6 months to a year before you have to make a snap decision. So while these are also things to look at after the passing of a spouse, that you really, now might be a good time to look at, what do I need to do ahead of time, to plan for this, so that you're in that, first group, that you actually know where to go and know who to talk to. So you may also want to just set things up that you take a trip and you just take a breather, splurge a little bit, take a breather, and figure out what you want to do. And like I said, there's so many people that are going to come at you from all sides saying, do this, do that. And it really has to be something that's important to you. And I think, one thing this pandemic has shown us is that what is really important. So there's a lot of things that we think that we need that we really don't need. And there's also things that we thought we didn't need that we do need. So, the human interaction, I think, is something that a lot of people have been missing over the past few years. And I think you really have to sit down and decide, what is most important to you. So the checklist that I have as well that I can provide you. So basically it is a checklist. So it's, so rebuilding your and securing your wealth after the death of a spouse. So the top things that you need to look at are, first of all, if you really don't know where to turn to, go to a friend or to someone that you trust. Get legal, tax, and financial advice. So if you don't have things in place, just make sure that you're not going to make a wrong decision, that you're not going to sell something or cash something out, like a taxable account, that's going to put you in a worse off financial position. Whereas if you got some advice, that you could basically have made a better choice. You may or may not have funeral arrangements in place. I mean, those are things that also, you need to get sorted out. So in Canada anyway, basically, if, for example, you didn't have joint accounts and you didn't have access to cash, funeral arrangements can actually be paid through an account of a deceased, just by presenting the bills. So you don't have to worry about not having cash right away for that. There's also government benefits that you need to apply for. So in Canada, there's a death benefit. There's also CPP survivor benefits, depending on the age of the spouse. If you're over 65 and you're receiving CPP, then you can combine. There's a maximum that you can receive. So if one of you is receiving not the maximum and the other is receiving a lower amount, then you can combine it to the maximum. So you have to just make sure that you apply for all of that. And the old age security, unfortunately, on the passing of a spouse, you will lose that one component of that. And also look at your spouse's past and recent employers. So there may be insurance policies out there that you may not know about. And there may also be different policies that were set up that you've lost track of. Look at life insurance claims. Basically, if your spouse was still working, generally their employer is going to have some sort of policy in place, whether it's 1 times, 1.5 times. Call the bank, find out where accounts are, look through old paperwork, things like that. Tax returns will also provide information on where information is. So, for example, if there's investment slips on there that you didn't know about, then the tax return will provide information on where assets may be if you don't have a list of where all that is now. And other things you have to remember to do, close your accounts, make things, from joint to single, and cancel subscriptions in your spouse's name. And also, look at things to avoid being targets of fraud. I know in one of the previous speakers, they had talked about an online place where you can put all of your passwords. I'm a written person, so I like to write everything down. I have a book of, all my passwords, for Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of my bank cards. And so that's all in a secure place where my spouse knows about it, because I'm the one that does all of our banking. And it's interesting. I was asking my husband, if something happened to me, what would you do? And he kind of, said, well, I would just make sure I looked in the book that I know where everything is, because I have a book, and I just told him that if he ever has, if something ever happens to me, that there's, a book where he can go look, and everything is in there. The contact information of, who to talk to on the investing, at the banks, credit cards. So all of those things. And the other thing is to, update your will and power of attorney, because you also want to make sure that that is up to date. And, right now, once you lose a spouse, unfortunately, you lose a lot of the transferability of assets tax-free. So you just have to make sure that that's updated, and that you're not leaving too much to the government as far as, tax, what's taxed when you pass away. So you want to make sure that your wills and power of attorneys are redone and up to date. And really, the last thing is determining what's important to you, and look at, do you want to stay in the property? Is it, better to hire someone to do all, the outside work and the repairs, or is it better to downsize and, maybe even pre-gift some funds to your children, and just make your life a little bit easier, so that you don't have to worry about staying in the same property if it's too much upkeep. So again, it really just depends on you and your situation and what works for you. And the key is to find someone that you trust to share your situation. You should never feel pressured or made uncomfortable about dealing with any investment professional and being told to do something that you're not comfortable with. I mean, I think women are pretty good at, intuition and understanding what's important to us and knowing what works for us. So really, take that to heart and know that your intuition is your best guide. Trust your gut, and, work with someone that makes you feel comfortable. And at the end of the day, there's so many out there that can help you make the right decisions that work for you, and that have the resources and tools to help you feel confident about your future and, what comes next. So, look at it as an opportunity. While it is a very sad situation, I think that it does present opportunities as well. And, at the end of the day, just education, and Purse Strings is a great organization to be able to provide this education. And the more you know, the more empowered you are, and the better choices you can make. And it's all about making informed decisions and just knowing what your options are. So I hope that has helped, given you some information on what to do next, and that on the death of a spouse, and knowing that you're definitely not alone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. That was some great information that you do have to agree that, it's also a time for opportunity and new things. But I like some of those things you brought up about assessing. We talk about a home, and sometimes we just look at the price, but it's kind of, what do I want now that maybe someone's not there to do all the lawn and the mechanical work? Do you just want to rent something where that's taken care of, which also falls into, the budget of either paying landscapers, keeping the house, doing different things. So you have options out there, definitely.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think it really comes down to, to cash flow, looking at what you have and what your expenses are, and if you can afford it. And once you know that you can afford it, do you really want to stay there? And sometimes it takes a while to move on,
Of
because
course.
you got to remember, I mean, for us, we've been in our house for, over 20 years, and it probably will take me some time to decide to sell, because there's so many memories tied up in it.
Definitely.
But at the end of the day, if you have an understanding of what your options are and whether you can, if you can stay, then it gives you that chance to make those decisions based on, the information you have, as opposed to doing it because you think you have to move or you have to make a change.
Right. Definitely. And I think that's another point is, these decisions should not be rushed. And you should really take that time, take that vacation like we talked about, and kind of get away. It's not like you need to decide in the first 6 months up and out of the house or not. Take time. You do need that time to grieve as well.
Yeah.
And then that's nice that your husband knows exactly where your book of information is. We've been talking a lot about that and how everyone should kind of have that binder, and tell, somebody probably that you love who's in your house, but also tell someone who's probably, out of your house as well, just in case anything happens if you two are together.
Well, that's it. And there's so many things that, and it's funny because when I was coming to do this talk, I did actually ask my husband, I said, so what would you do if if something happened to me? He said, it was kind of as like he was a deer in headlights at first. And I'm like, I told you where the binder was. I told you where everything is.
You got to test them now and then, you're really paying attention.
Yeah. But, it's you always think that there's time.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, things happen. So, like I said, my mother-in-law passed away at 52. And I mean, that's a shock. 52 is young.
Yeah,
very
definitely.
young. And,
definitely.
It's just understanding what, who to talk to, and knowing your options.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly right. Let's bring on Barb here.
Yeah. I've been, listening to all of this, and it's such great information, such great reminders. But like Maggie has said before, we really need to get women to take action. This is so critical. And I love that in prep for this speaking engagement, that you asked your husband the question, because too often we don't ask each other that question. And even though you're a financial expert and had everything in place, he was still kind of like, whew, look for that binder, right?
Yeah.
So I think, addressing or having these conversations and readdressing it maybe annually or even 6 months if things have changed, and really making sure that there's your go-to emergency plan in place. And this is what Purse Strings is all about, is, sharing these stories. We've shared a lot of stories over the past month about women who were widowed, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And whether even if you're planned for it, it's a shock to the system. It's a shock. And the more you have planned and upfront and in place, the less you have to be concerned about your financial impacts, and the more you can spend on your grieving and your family and your children and your arrangements and things like that. So that's why this topic, although not sexy as we say, is so important, and we need to plan for these things. So I appreciate what you've gone over. I think they're very critical steps. Where can we get a link to your document? Can we put that in our Facebook group?
Yes, I will send you a link to
All
that.
right,
Okay.
we'll put it in the comments, and
we'll
it will
put
be
it in
there.
Yeah, because the other thing is not just having the conversation, but really going through your checklist, because there might be things that you forget to discuss. But if you have a checklist that you can go through, that's really, really helpful to make sure you've addressed everything. So, ladies, it's all about making a plan, having those conversations, having the right financial professional. That's your go-to person should something happen. I had a woman who is a financial professional, said the first thing she did when she found out her husband died tragically, picked up the phone and called her financial professional, and and she was in shock, right? But she knew she had a trusted professional by her side that she knew was her go-to person in the event something like this should happen. So get your plans in order. I mean, it's tough, but once you get done, you'll be like, we're living our lives now, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
that's the thing. I think it's important as well, now that, um, you've introduced the topic is look at the checklist and think and look at, again, like what I said to my husband, like, what would you do? What would you do if
Right.
something happened to me? And I guess it's a bit different because I'm, being a financial planner, I'm the one that kind of takes care of all the money. And not that he can't, but that's just, evolved as, I'm the one that manages all that because
Mm-hmm.
he's got a very demanding job. So, he just said, oh, well, I'll figure it out. I'm like, but why would you want to? Like, figure
Right.
it out ahead of time so you don't have to worry about that. Because, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the emotions that you're dealing with when this happens. And it's not just with, just, obviously with the death, then it's that person's no longer there. But it's also now, I think, people that are dealing with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Very good
something
point.
that the person is alive, but they're really not there,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So you
Yeah.
can't ask them the questions. And so it's good to have the conversation ahead of time. And they are tough conversations, but I think, as time goes on, we get more comfortable in talking about finances.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something that used to be taboo. I mean, I never talked to my mom about financial issues because you just didn't talk about it. But now I think there's so much more information out there. We're so connected. You should know this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think that you aren't smart enough to know this, you're wrong because you are.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are smart enough. You
Exactly.
basically, we underestimate, a lot of women I find underestimate their abilities to understand it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. If we're not talking about it, we're not learning about it. And we really want everyone to be proactive because that's when you have options. And so, that way you can really be in the best place. If anything were to happen, hopefully it doesn't, but that's why we always buy insurance and for our house and our cars and everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you so much, Heather, for all this great information. We really appreciate it.
Thank
You
you.
can always reach Heather at Holgevac Financial Group or heatherholgevac@gmail.com. She's also one of our wonderful Purse Strings approved professionals. So you can check her out on our website, pursestrings.co. And we will be back here next week, starting our new month with our theme of leading corporate. So we appreciate everyone tuning in this month, learning about widows, understanding this importance, becoming proactive so you can have these options, and working with great professionals who will always be by your side, like Heather. So thank you, and we'll see everyone again next week. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Bye.
Bye.